The transfer portal is open. Come check it out. You're locked on.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available where we get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, we just want to take a moment to say how thankful we are for all of you. This podcast has grown so much in the last 9 months, and it's because of fans like you who value great UConn content, and it's for my everydayers who are with me every day, twice a day sometimes. We're proud to say we're the only daily podcast covering both UConn men's and women's basketball and, of course, UConn football. So we're thrilled to bring you this coverage because it's what you guys deserve. To show that gratitude, we're giving back. We're donating 10% of our revenue to Husky Ticket Project. It helps send kids to UConn football games, basketball games, both men's and women's. And we're also making monthly donations to Bleeding Blue for Good, supporting our NIL initiatives that make a difference at UConn. If you're enjoying the show, take a moment to subscribe, follow, and leave a review wherever you listen. Thanks again for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, and new customers can place a $5 bet, and you get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Okay. As you can see on the bottom, I'm going to drop my overlay. It's transfer portal season, baby. And what that means is we're in free agency. And I have my boys Pete and Bobby from the TNT College Football Podcast to come in and navigate UConn's transfer portal. What's up, my guys? First question of the day, and your mics are muted, so you can't say, "Hey, how are you?" yet, because we're going to ask you a question first. Well, I don't care how you guys are. I want to know about the transfer portal. The first question is: we have 27 offers out to prospective players to join this UConn Huskies program. Who is your top two, and who do you want to see of these 27? Who are your top two in this? Pete, I'm going to let you go first, and then Bobby, you go second.
Well, I have 4, but I'll give you 2.
You can only give me 2. Top 2.
All right. My top 2, AJ Pena from Rhode Island. Just watched 2 of his games in the FCS playoffs, and was a guy with a high motor, linebacker, blitzing linebacker, kid from Miami. Plays like a Miami kid with a chip on his shoulder. I think he'd be an excellent fit in our 3-3-5 system, and would probably, propel himself to a draft pick should he be in our system. And another guy I had on my my radar was Isaiah Reed, defensive back from Brown. He's been an all-league performer with the Bears the last 2 seasons, I believe, despite being on bad teams. He already has a lot of P4 offers, but he'd be an ideal fit in our system as well.
Okay. What about you, Bobby?
Well, I absolutely agree with Pete on AJ Pena. Man, that kid can play some football. He'd be a perfect fit in our system. I'll go with a couple other guys, though. Offensive lineman, Tommy Matheson from Princeton, all-league performer in the Ivy League. He would fit really, really well in our offensive line. He can do some really good things as a mauler running. He's good pass protection. I mean, he's just a really good all-around player. It could be a stretch for us to get him, though. He's got some really, really solid offers, P4 stuff. I mean, he's going to have some really good opportunities. And then I'll go with the other one I'll go with is Ty Cooper, linebacker from Mississippi State. Reason I like him is because I'm assuming he's been recruited by Matt Brock, because Matt Brock coached that position at Mississippi State.
Yep.
So I'm assuming that they have a relationship together. I would think that they would be a good match, personnel wise, scheme wise. Clearly, that has to be the reason why we offered him, and I just think he would be another really good fit in our defense there.
All right. Before we move on, I'm going to give you my 2. This one is just for symmetry. I want Javante Vereen, the tight end from NC State. They took our guy. We take one back. That's just a tit for tat type thing. I'm down with that. And then you took my guy, Ty Cooper. So I'm going to go with Vincent Jackson, defensive lineman from Nebraska, who's visiting now. As of now, he visited this week. Also, he followed me almost immediately. So maybe that is a sign of things to come where he wants to follow some of UConn media. So that would be really cool to get that big dog from Nebraska to come and be on this defensive line for UConn next year. All right, cool. When we return, we're going to take a quick break. I want to talk about the rest of these guys, and then I want to see if any of the guys that are kind of out there that maybe a little bit what people would consider out of our league may have, but you never know. You got to reach for the stars. That's what this is about. It's free agency, and we're going to also talk about in the last segment how Jim Mora has an unbelievable advantage having been through this in the NFL, because that's what this is, man. It's pseudo semi-professional free agency, and we're going to talk about all of that coming up after this. What's up, NFL fans? You can start this season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place, so you can get a hunch in the middle of a game. You can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And you're back with the boys here. We are in transfer portal heaven, talking about potential folks coming to UConn from P4 schools, FCS, Group of Five. You guys just gave me your top two. I gave you my top two. Before we get into our wish list, let's take a deeper dive into this list. 27 players that we know of. There could be more. When you look at this list, Bobby, what do you think the focus is on? Do you think it's a more like scatter shot where it's like we're just trying to get the most talent possible? Or is there a strategic viewpoint of this where it's, hey, we're hitting heavy wide receiver, defensive line, offensive line? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's very clear that they're hitting the defensive back room very heavy. We've lost a lot of guys there. We got some really good ones graduating and moving on. So it's clear that we're hitting that position really hard. We got to fill the linebacker roles as well. So that's another one that we've hit really hard. I kind of thought that we'd offer a little bit more offensive linemen than we have, but we have some really good guys in the mix coming up. So I'm not necessarily concerned about that, especially I trust Gordon Samus and what he's doing there. But also hitting the wide receiver position really hard. I know the position that a lot of fans are interested in is the quarterback position. We are going to have to add one more scholarship quarterback to the roster. So will it be a starter level guy, or will it be a guy who we're looking to develop? We'll have to see what route they go in that regard.
That's a great God, Bobby. It's like you're a pro. It's a great question because seriously, I mean, if I think it's a concern. Like, when what we saw, I think we like what we saw from Nick Evers early, and then the injuries came in, and then we started to question whether he could run this offense. Maybe is it injury focused? He needs the reps, et cetera, et cetera. There's a couple guys out there who fit the bill as having started a lot of games. They're also going to require a lot of cash that I don't necessarily know if we have. Pete, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't like starting over. If you got guys that are already on the roster, keep developing them. I think, honestly, Nick showed flashes of what he could do. People got to remember he came here during the summer, didn't even get any spring ball. And he came with literally about a month and a half to prepare before the season. The only other quarterback I've known has done that in recent history is Cam Newton with New England. So I would say just give him another year to develop, be in the system, develop chemistry with the wide receivers, which I think was the biggest problem with his play in terms of completing passes. It was just little subtle things about timing of passes, people being where they're supposed to be in terms of completing passes. It's not just the quarterback's job. It's an all-11 job with the passing game. I think, his arm talent is evident. I like him. I like Cole there. If you want to get another veteran, it's possible, but I say, develop what we got now and see how far we can move with them.
Okay. Bobby, do you agree with that, or do you think that there's an opportunity to add? I'm just looking at the list right now. I don't think we're going to go after anyone big, but I mean, I'll use a couple of examples. Right, you have a kid down in Alabama who is a 3-star or / 4-star recruit that's transferring, I'm curious, like, what your thoughts are. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be specific to Power 5 schools or Power 4 schools. It could be, like what we have with Joey Fiano, where he played at Maine. Someone that that you can rely on in case Nick isn't the guy.
Right. Well, like Pete said, I think just getting the repetition and building everything with the receiving core is going to be huge during the offseason to help Nick progress. And he wants to be here too. I think that's a big thing. Him and Skylar Bell are out there trying to recruit guys. You've seen it on social media. But I'll throw 2 names out there if we were interested to look for guys that have played a good amount. They're not necessarily quote unquote big names from big schools, but EJ Warner coming from Rice could be a potential. I know we recruited him out of high school. He played at Temple, played at Rice. He could be a guy that could come in and play a year and kind of bridge the gap if that's what we were looking to do. I don't necessarily say we should do that. I'm just throwing it out there. Then the one that really intrigues me is Caden Simonza from Ball State. He's the MAC Freshman of the Year this past year. And I know a lot of people don't necessarily watch Ball State football or watch the MAC exclusively, but this young man, yes, he was on a bad team, but he can sling it. He's a good football player. We offered one of his wide receivers already, who followed me as well. So I think there's a potential for him to become a Husky. So maybe there's a connection there. He's from California though, so I think he might look to go home. Maybe. I mean, who knows? You never know what guys are looking for these days. But I really like him a lot. So if we were looking to like get somebody in who can really compete, he would definitely be on the top of my list.
If there's one guy that's on the top of my list, and it's a absolute long shot, but why not? Because of where he's from. It's Tyler Van Dyke. He is in the transfer portal. He is literally from Glastonbury, Connecticut. I'm talking about coming home. He's got 1 year of eligibility. And the only way that would be possible is if you felt like, all right, he's also coming from Wisconsin, so there's kind of a weird connection there with Nick. I don't know if that works because I can see Pete's face like, man, that's not happening. But I'm looking at it from a perspective of if you want to go a different direction where a guy like Van Dyke who can sling it. He was the 3-year starter at Miami. He's had injury history. Didn't play so well last year at Wisconsin. He's got 1 more year of eligibility. A little bit of a homecoming. Throw that out there. I think he would fit in well in terms of very Joey Fiano like, but maybe on a different level as far as arm strength. And even though Joey was slinging it pretty hard this past year. What do you think, Pete?
Maybe. I haven't been one of those Tyler Van Dyke fans, honestly. I honestly think that he benefited from the talent level he had at Miami. And when he went to Wisconsin, he just wasn't the same quarterback. I mean, there's a difference between South Florida players and players that they recruit up in Wisconsin in terms of the receiving talent. My brother played down in South Florida. I got to see it firsthand. So if you're an effective quarterback, there shouldn't have been a big time drop in production that there should have been that was shown by Tyler Van Dyke when he went to Wisconsin. So I wouldn't necessarily say he would be coming in as the savior of the quarterback position at UConn. So I'm a little skeptical, honestly.
All right, fair enough. If there is one guy that is Like if the coaching staff was like, all right, we have concerns about Nick. We want to bring in one guy that maybe we throw a bunch of NIL money at because we feel like, it's a kind of a splashy move. It's not Tyler Van Dyke in your guys' estimation. I can see Bobby's not on board with that one either. But is there another guy that we haven't mentioned that could potentially be a splashy quarterback find?
Yeah, problem is he was already taken by Duke.
Who?
Darien Mensah. Darien Mensah, the quarterback from Tulane. Yeah. He's already signed by Duke. That would have been the one guy I would have been like, yeah, maybe.
Okay, fair enough.
I'll throw another one out there. Chandler Morris from North Texas. He can flat out sling it.
Yeah.
I mean,
now we're talking.
He played in an air raid system, so there might be a little adjustment to what we do here, but he can flat out do it. He's a good football player, man.
All right. Well, listen.
Yeah, that kid is good. That kid is really good.
It's in the transfer portal season, the transfer portal chatter of the 24 going into 25 year, nothing's out of bounds. You know what I mean? Like, it's just we're throwing names out there because you never know. Maybe someone hears it and then it starts the telephone game and there's an opportunity for him to talk to some of our coaching staff. Who knows, man? But as you guys know, all of this comes down to NIL and also if it's the right fit. So it's a two-prong, and I feel like the NIL part is obviously a much bigger prong. If we're talking like a grill, this prong is up here and the fit is down here somewhere. So who has the biggest bag is really what we're coming down to. All right, we're gonna jump to the next segment. When I take a break here, I want to hear about this advantage that Jim Mora has because I tend to agree with it that this guy has been an NFL coach. He doesn't really care that this is NFL free agency, and this is what this is, college football free agency. We're going to talk about that when we come back after the break. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. It's guaranteed perfection in every single bite, and right now you can save an unforgettable gifts with 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, score an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience, and the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages featuring gourmet favorites from legendary steaks to mouthwatering desserts and more. Save 50% off site-wide for a limited time at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. That's 50% off omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. Minimum purchase may apply. Go check it out, omahasteaks.com. All right, we're back on Locked On UConn, and we're with the boys here talking portal chatter about the UConn Huskies, of course. We've gone over a couple of dynamic folks that we've already offered in Ty Cooper, Javante Vereen. Who am I missing, guys? I can't think of his name off the top of my head. Where's my list?
AJ Pena.
AJ Pena, the Rhode Island linebacker from Miami. Who else did you have, Bobby?
The offensive lineman, Tommy Matheson from Princeton.
Perfect. We've also thrown out there Jamel Johnson, the DB from Temple, is on. We've offered. We got
Isaiah Reed. Isaiah Reed from Brown.
Perfect. Yep. I've also talked about Vincent Jackson, the defensive lineman from Nebraska. And there's be plenty more. 27 offers and counting. I don't think they're going to be too shy about offering folks to come up north to stores or wherever they're coming from. We also floated out some ideas of a potential quarterback if it's available, if it's something that they feel like they need to do to solidify that group. And this is where I want to talk about. Jim Mora is a former NFL coach. For all the criticism I've given him this year, I will say one of the things that I am excited about is how he puts together this offseason and this roster, having the opportunity to essentially be in college football free agency because he's done it in the NFL. Bobby, what kind of advantage do you think he has, almost like not worrying about it? Because I know some coaches have these kind of moral and ethical issues where they came into college football maybe as an educator and now they're coaching and doesn't feel quite like the college football that they went through. And Jim Mora Doesn't seem like he cares about that because he's done this at the NFL level.
I think that's a very important aspect into this with everything in his background, what he brings to the table. Obviously, NIL is a huge deal. It's very, very important. But I do believe that Coach Mora, with his connections, and obviously every coach has connections to the next level, but Mora's connection is significantly different than everyone else's. He coached at that level. His father obviously coached at that level. I mean, he's been there and done that. So I think to guys that are coming from the P4 level, yes, they want some money, but let's look at a guy like Skylar Bell or Jaden McDonald, some of those guys that we got this year. These are guys that obviously can play at a very high level, and the guys that we had to give some money to, obviously. But at the same time, you're coming to play for a coach who can help propel you and get you to that next level, as a player while you're in college to help promote you to those scouts and coaches at the next level. And I think that that's just as important. Honestly, to me, it's even more important because how about you focus on getting to that next level where you'll really get a bag then if that's really what you want to do.
Pete, can you see Bobby just brought up Jim Mora's dad, who every time I hear his name, I chuckle a little bit for obvious reasons for that one soundbite. But could you see a moment where we're doing an ad where if Jim Mora, the elder Jim Mora is alive in a few years and he's essentially going playoffs and UConn's sniffing the college football playoff? Can see an advertisement for that if we kill this transfer portal year?
Most definitely. How can you not take advantage of that? That would be so apropos, right?
Be awesome, right? I, as soon as you said that name, I literally got a vision of that where like Jim walks in and says, "Dad, we're going to the playoffs," and he's like, "Playoffs?" Like I think that would be the funniest commercial / ad. So UConn, if you want to start making that now and like putting it in the can for when that happens, do it. I'm telling you, that would be priceless.
That would be perfect. But alluding back to Bobby's point, it's the model that every team is trying to follow now. I call it the Mora model. Look at what happened the past 48 hours in Chapel Hill in UNC with the hiring of Bill Belichick. A lot of people are questioning it. I think that's a genius hire considering the new landscape in NIL and with college football. And along the same lines that Mora has organized the structure of the program here at UConn, Belichick's probably going to do the same thing, and he probably did it better than most coaches have ever done it at the NFL level. So being able to handle it, albeit with a little different dynamics in terms of NIL collectives and stuff, but it's basically the same thing, developing a player personnel department to scout players, both in high school and in the colleges, working together with the NIL collectives to raise funds and see, along that, quote, cap, who they can bring in to help the team. Belichick's going to be a very good fit in terms of reorganizing a team and being able to do so every year.
For sure. No, it's a good point, Pete. On Belichick, I also feel like too, I don't know if that's a done deal. When I looked at it earlier, I think it's the most recent of like 2 o'clock this afternoon. Because this will go out on Wednesday the 11th. It's basically the ball's in his court. Like he can take the job, or I think they're in the negotiation phase because he's trying to kind of finagle his son as like his successor. So we'll see if North Carolina goes for that. But it's still a great point. I think most people are trying to go with that. I mean, you could look at Colorado with Deion. Like he brings his own challenges, but Deion is. I don't think Deion, he understands the landscape more than probably anybody because he's been through this from a free agent perspective and leverage and negotiations with all of it. So I think you're going to see more and more of that as time goes on. As far as, let's pivot a little bit. We're still obviously talking transfer portal. We got the Fenway Bowl playing Carolina. I got to think that this is another great opportunity to beat an ACC school. In a school that is literally in the middle of tremendous turmoil, playing in our backyard, not too far away from campus. What do you think, Bobby?
Well, I think this is honestly the best opportunity that we've had. They have a ton of guys in the portal. I'm sure they're going to have a good amount of guys opting out. They have an interim head coach. I mean, granted, like they got guys, they got players. We know that they're in the ACC. They're going to have dudes. But at the same time, like there's a lot going on there.
Yep.
How focused will they be? Sometimes you see with these Power Four teams that are playing in the non-New Year's Day or New Year's Eve type games that they're not as excited to be there. I'm not trying to say that will be the case, but you've seen it from time to time in the past. So I can definitely see that happening. I think that this. I would even go as far to say that this is a must-win game for us. And I really, really think, and I know I've said it before, I'll say it again, but I really think we're going to get this
one. Okay. What about you, Pete?
Yeah, I think it's a game ripe for the taking. You know, having watched UNC all year this year, I mean, the turmoil firsthand that we've been shown every week, as it's a flagship university they normally like to feature down here in the Carolinas. They've been up and down all year, and they basically go as Damarion Hampton goes, their running back, who's considered probably one of the top 3 running backs in the draft this year. It's highly questionable whether or not he's going to play, particularly up in the cold. If it gets in the 20s, is he going to want to risk injury and jeopardy to his NFL career? And I honestly feel that without him, they struggle to function at times. So we can definitely compete with them, playing alike opponents. I mean, I think they split between Wake Forest and Duke. They lost to Duke by a couple of points and beat Wake by a couple of points, but we're very comparable in terms of the type of team that we have, type of production we can produce to be effective and beat them. So it's definitely a game that's ripe for the taking.
All right, and as we get a little closer, we'll probably end up doing a preview show for you guys, and would love to have you guys on for that. All right, guys, that was a great show. I'm gonna close out on that. We got a little bit of everything, who we offered, who we think our wish list is, Jim Mora's advantage, a little Fenway Bowl talk, and we're literally just trying to say this is a big part of this about this football program, guys. We got to crush this transfer portal, get as many good players as possible, and really kind of elevate this team off of a big year this year. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn. Go ahead, Pete. What you got?
I know in the Twitter sphere, people are already panicking about the people we did offer. I just want to remind people that we didn't get a lot of the big transfer stars until late in the season last year. So I would say Husky Nation, just calm down, trust the powers that be in the program. We're going to get players.
Fair enough. You concur, Bobby?
Absolutely. We didn't get a lot of the bigger name guys until after spring ball.
Yeah, that's true. And I think there's patience to that. And also guys are seeing what's left, right? Like where can they go? What can be the team that kind of puts them on the map? So I think this 8-win season will definitely help them get some guys that maybe people are would laugh at another year before. So looking forward to it. And we'll definitely come back maybe in a week or two and do another show and see where things fall. And we'll go from there. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto, for Pete Callen and Bobby Wilson. We say, what's the what are we saying?
Roll skis.
Roll skis.
Roll skis.